what we do, right? We're fair, I think, and we judge this government based on their judgment of the last government, what they expect the last government to do, or what they've said themselves. So, like, for example...
Well, for the very reason that it actually leads to perceptions of bias, rightly or wrongly. I just say to you, that's the perception. Whether that's real or not doesn't really matter.
Yeah, so remember very clearly, pre-Prime Minister Luxon, it didn't matter whether perception was actually, the conflict of interest was actually there or not. It's bad enough to be a conflict of interest, possibly, like the perception of. So we might come back to that a bit more when we're talking about Casey Costello. We're going to start off by talking about the funding cuts to Te Reo. This conversation is about 60 seconds, and then I want to go to the New Zealand Herald and read out to you actually what the report says, because the report is pretty glowing. What did they say this morning on breakfast?
We had the Māori Principals Association on earlier this morning, Tracy Fraser. Do you stand by the funding cuts to Te Reo for teachers? And she says, why can't you have both?
Well, I think the first thing is what I'd be most concerned about is only 12% of our Māori students at the end of year 8 are where they need to be on maths.
So just for a change, Chewy, he does not answer the question. He rolls out the talking points around achievement in schools. Now, that's a conversation to be had, for sure, but that's not the question that Daniel Faitaua asked him. I have to be honest, I freaked out a little bit there because for some reason I was expecting Jenny May-Coffin, and I heard Daniel Faitaua, and I was like, oh no, I wasn't Jenny May-Coffin.
Concerned about is only 12% of our Māori students at the end of year 8 are where they need to be on mathematics going into high school. Across the whole country, it's only 22%. So basically 4 out of 5 of our kids across the whole country are not at the standard they need to be going into high school. We know mathematics is critical because we can't build 4-lane highways to whangarei, we can't do agri-science, we can't do artificial intelligence if we don't have some of that foundational knowledge in place. So that's our focus and that's our
Okay, so let's ask this question, Mr. Luxon. What is our biggest earner here in New Zealand? Tourism. Tourism is our biggest earner. Just to play the game that Luxon's playing, do you think knowing what pi is to the 7th decimal is more important for tourism or Te Reo? Or speaking and knowing Māori? Like, because he's basically minimising Te Reo by saying how important maths is in these fields. And sure, I would agree with him that maths is probably more important in those fields than a second language or a Māori language, like if it's your second language. However, there are lots of other work fields. In fact, the one that earns New Zealand the most money, where Te Reo, knowing Māori, understanding Māori, would be more relevant than maths. It's funny how he doesn't use that example, Chewy.
This guy is a moron. Like, I just keep circling back to it. You can't push him off his talking points. He can't update his thinking.
I'll just bring this up while you're talking.
Yeah, look. File footage. Like, it's just such shallow thinking. Like, yes, maths is important. No one's debating that it isn't.
Yeah.
But when you minimize our individual country's culture, and rank it at that point, going, well, this isn't good enough. Like, the question is not, hey, look, Māori students aren't achieving to the level that we want them to because of Te Reo Māori.
Yeah.
Like, the answer is somewhere else. Our education system is failing our Māori students. Why? Is it classroom style? Is it classroom size? Are we trying to make them learn in a system that is not set up for them, that does not bend? And his answer is to come up with a more rigid education system. Absolutely insane.
So this clip is only like 1:10, right? The first 40 seconds of 1:10, he hasn't answered it. He's deferred off to a talking point. Let's see what the last 30 seconds holds, folks.
priority. What we've done with respect to that program is made an assessment to say, look, we've spent $100 million on it since 2019. It's not NZQA accredited. It's double the cost of other providers. And frankly, there's been low completion rates. We think with the different wānanga and also tertiary institutions that there's other programs that can deliver some of that te reo education and training that we want to see. So we're committed to that. But it's just, we're also a government, as I've said many times before, if we see a program being ineffective, we're quite happy to stop it and do something else that is going to be more effective.
Now, to me, Chewy, this is one of those examples as well of, we've talked about this, cancelling something before you've got a replacement for it. Because when you hear Mr. Luxon say, you know, another wānanga, these places can pick up on it, you kind of go, you know, let's be fair, guys. Yes, we as taxpayers, if there is another option which is as good or better and half the price, I mean, that's still why spending money. But what he's saying is, in theory, other wānangas could do this. And whilst they're saying in theory, they're cancelling this plan, Chewy.
Yeah, absolutely. This isn't planning. This is government by ideology, government by absolute chaos.
Mm-hmm.
And they're hoping that we can't keep track of all of these things that they're doing. But there's a lot of us that are paying attention to this now, and a lot of us that are just cutting through it. So these guys have got to wake up. Like if the rage that is bubbling down here in the South Island at the moment over something like the hospital filters through into other issues, then this is a one-term government. This has to be a one-term government.
And remember when they start talking about money and that kind of stuff, this was the adage before the election.
We want a government that cares about how every single dollar is spent, because every single dollar the government spends is ultimately a dollar from your pocket.
That's clearly bullshit.
And then they spend $4 million. And look, $4 million is chicken feed when you've got a GDP of whatever it is, 250 billion, right? Gotcha. But it was Luxon's standard for himself. He said it. Not me. This is not me putting on to Luxon my understanding of what he should do. It's him. It's him putting it onto him.
We want a government that cares about how every single dollar is spent. Because every single dollar the government spends is ultimately a dollar from your pocket.
And when they're cancelling this course, which is 30 million, but they're spending 4 million on a referendum or a series of legislative manoeuvres, which are going to go nowhere. So he's saying every single dollar matters, well, except for those 4 million, which are a waste of time because it's not going anywhere. Those 4 million, that's actually quite a big chunk towards 30 million. That could have been a step way to paying for what they're now cancelling, Chewy.
We should start a tally list. Like, yeah, cool. So 4 million, how much are we having to pay the Koreans for fucking them around? $500,000 that we paid Bill English to do almost no work, 3 day a week levy at the health service. I guess they're walking away from a hospital down here, so there's a sunk money in that. Mm-hmm. Like they say this, and it sounds great. It sounds like we've got a government that is aware of the fact that the money that they're spending doesn't belong to them, and that there are obligations that come with it, and it is not backed up by action. Because these guys can borrow. Like the International Monetary Fund came out today and said, we've got concerns about New Zealand's economy and their spending.
Yeah.
We believe, as we have done for many years, that they need to look at a comprehensive capital gains tax, and that they need to look at not that they're spending, but what they're spending on.
Yeah.
And singling out the removal of interest deductibility for landlords. The International Monetary Fund. What the fuck? This is just, it's mental. It is brainworms territory. Everybody's gone insane.
Anna mentions one way to do maths and reading isn't going to help neurodiverse kids. Yep, we're aware of that. This is what happened in the 70s, 80s, and maybe 90s. When you heard about kids, there's the odd kid falls through the crack. Yeah, the neurodiverse kid that didn't fit in with that structure, and now they're bringing that structure back. So you're 100%. You're 100% on that. Absolutely. Let's also have a look at now, though, what this course is that they're cancelling, because I think it's important for us to try and think about it. Te Ahu o Te Reo Māori, inside the report, used to justify cutting 30 million from a te reo course for teachers. I think that it's probably most important we just go to the bit that says what the findings include. Okay, so this is this course which is underperforming, not doing well enough, and so we're going to scrap it. The program is, this is from the report, remember, very clear, and I just said that, but it's from the report that they're using to cancel it. The program is very popular with outstanding engagement from the sector. One provider has a waiting list twice the size of their annual allocation. 87% of participants said the program helped them build the confidence they needed to use te reo in the classroom. 87%, because he's like only 12% finished it. It's like, oh no, that was 12% for the Māori kids. Sorry, I'll withdraw. 97% would recommend it to others, 97%. 79% said they are keen to take another Te Ahu Aotearoa Māori course. Participants face challenges knowing how to implement what they had learned in a way that was appropriate for their students. At least 56% of all participants are actively teaching students, potentially increasing up to 80% when factoring in senior leadership. Enrollments beyond level 3 were, quote, likely to be for personal interest and fulfillment rather than development of their teaching practice. So people are getting involved and going, hey, I like this whole part of New Zealand. I want to do more. Reports point to shortfalls in Ministry of Education data collection, including significant information gaps in the documentation collected on the program. And providers asked for clear directives, quote unquote, on the analytics the ministry required on participant numbers and engagement, but were left to determine it out themselves. Issues like this led to inconsistencies across providers, ultimately making it harder to measure the performance of the wider initiative. So there's some paperwork issues within there, but what it's saying is, that means we can't really give you a really clear indication, but what we can tell you is people like it, people use it, people want to come back, everybody recommends it, and that report to the national government, national-led government, goes, well, we better get rid of it, Chewy. Get rid of it.
I love this. Again, just standard pattern that we have with this government is that they announce something, we go, that doesn't sound good,
yeah,
and then we wait 3 days for someone to prove that we were right.
Yeah.
And it usually involves they were provided with advice and they ignored it. So it doesn't matter. It's not evidence-based. It's not fact-based. They're ignoring advice on a range of topics right throughout their responsibilities that affect all New Zealanders. It's targeted at some of our society's least protected people.
Yeah.
It's affecting our national culture. It is raising division. It's not good value for money. Like, do we need to go on?
Sadly, yes, because if we don't go on, it'll become last week's news cycle and no one else will talk about it. So unfortunately, yes, we do need to go on. And probably on. And probably on.
And on and on and on and on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Till election night.
Yes, yes, yes. All right. Is there anything else? Have you seen anything in the chat you want to get to or anything before we move on?
I've been going cross-eyed at this insanity. I haven't even been looking at the chat. I'm sorry. I was trying
to maybe follow your advice, Chewy, that you think National's doing, and front load the whole program with all the bullshit so we could have some fun out the back. So I was going, so maybe I'll play the other part of the Christopher Luxon thing now, and we can front load all the bullshit, but then we're just left with John Key. So I don't know which is the...
It's like being told that you can't have pudding until you've eaten your vegetables, and then you find out that your pudding's vegetables as well.
Yeah.